secrets, scandals, and sinister cover-ups. An overview of real conspiracy theories. Imagine an inside job that paved the way for Hitler's rise to power, a government cover-up of one of the darkest episodes of the Vietnam War, and a secret CIA weapon capable of triggering a lethal heart attack without a trace. These accounts might sound like the stuff of wild conspiracy theories, but history proves they truly occurred. The My Lai massacre and its concealment. On March 16, 1968, American troops on a search-and-destroy mission descended on the small Vietnamese hamlet of My Lai. Despite the absence of enemy forces, soldiers unleashed a rain of terror, setting huts ablaze and brutally killing between 347 and 504 civilians, including up to 50 very young children. Initial official reports even misrepresented these atrocities by falsely attributing the deaths to Viet Cong fighters. It wasn't until much later that the true horror emerged, exposing not only atrocities against innocent civilians, but also a deliberate effort by military leadership to sweep the dark truth under the rug. Lieutenant William Calley, singled out for his role, ultimately received a shockingly light sentence for such grave crimes. Unmasking covert operations through the Church Committee in 1975. The United States Senate's Church Committee, chaired by Senator Frank Churchfield. A litany of clandestine activities conducted by U.S. intelligence agencies such as the FBI, CIA, and NSA. Their investigations uncovered secret plots that included attempted assassinations of foreign leaders like Fidel Castro. Covert operations, such as COINTELPRO, targeting domestic political dissent, and media manipulation programs. The committee also brought forward evidence regarding notorious experiments under MKUltra and MKNAOMI, as well as a mysterious heart attack gun that delivered fatal poison darts, which left little to no trace. These findings ultimately led to reforms aimed at tightening oversight over U.S. intelligence operations. The Reichstag fire and the rise of the Nazi regime back in early 1933. A devastating fire at the Reichstag, the German parliament building, was quickly blamed on communist elements. This tragedy provided Adolf Hitler, then Chancellor, the pretext to arrest and expel political opponents, clearing the path for the Nazi Party's consolidation of power. By exploiting this crisis, Hitler rallied public support by portraying communists as an imminent threat, a tactic that helped cement one of history's darkest regimes. Operation Gladio and the shadow networks in Europe. After World War II, the United States collaborated with NATO and other Western allies to establish stay-behind networks known as Operation Gladio. These secret cells were deployed across Europe in anticipation of a potential Soviet invasion. However, they later became embroiled in controversial activities, engaging in political assassinations, psychological operations, and false flag attacks aimed at discrediting leftist groups. Despite official denials, there is compelling evidence that these covert operations played a significant role in suppressing dissent during the Cold War. Toxic measures during Prohibition. During America's Prohibition era, federal authorities adopted a drastic method to curb illegal alcohol production. By mandating that industrial alcohol be mixed with toxic chemicals such as methanol, officials hoped to deter bootleggers. Instead, this policy led to thousands of accidental deaths from poisoning and underscored the extreme lengths the government was willing to go to enforce prohibition. Project McNamee, experimenting with deadly substances. While many are familiar with the mind control experiments of MKUltra, its lesser-known successor, Project MKNAOMI, focused on developing chemical and biological weapons. Running from the 1950s into the late 1960s, this joint effort between the CIA and the Department of Defense sought to weaponize substances ranging from bacteria to knockout gases. Among its more chilling innovations were modified firearms capable of launching poison-laced darts, devices that could induce fatal heart attacks, without leaving clear forensic evidence. Although official records on McNamee are sparse, documents later released by investigative committees have confirmed its disturbing scope. The Lavon Affair. International false flag operations. Not every covert operation was strictly the domain of the United States. Israeli military intelligence orchestrated what became known as the Lavon Affair, covert false flag mission in Egypt, under the code name Operation Susanna. A group of Egyptian Jews were recruited to plant bombs in civilian locations, including cinemas and libraries, with the intent of blaming these acts on anti-government or extremist groups. When the operation unraveled, it led to a major political scandal that forced the resignation of Israel's defense minister and continued to stir controversy for decades. Gulf War syndrome and the unexplained illnesses of veterans after the Gulf War. An unusual cluster of symptoms began afflicting returning veterans, particularly in the United Kingdom. Common complaints included chronic fatigue, muscle pain, neurological deficits, and signs consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder. Researchers eventually linked these symptoms to exposure to low-level chemical agents, oil fire toxins, and other hazardous substances during the conflict. Although U.S. and other governments were slow to acknowledge these findings, subsequent investigations confirmed that Gulf War veterans were indeed suffering from a unique syndrome, one that many still struggled to obtain proper compensation for. The Dreyfus Affair, a historic case of miscarriage of justice in France. The late 19th and early 20th century Dreyfus Affair remains one of history's most infamous miscarriages of justice. Accused of espionage, largely because of his Jewish heritage, Captain Alfred Dreyfus was wrongfully convicted after dubious evidence was presented. Public sentiment was manipulated by virulent anti-Semitic propaganda, leading to a national scandal. Only after years of bitter controversy was new evidence uncovered that exonerated Dreyfus, exposing both the deep-seated anti-Semitism and the institutional corruption that had condemned him. The Manhattan Project's veiled secrets. The development of atomic bombs during World War II, carried out under the veil of the Manhattan Project, remains one of the greatest feats and greatest secrets of modern history. In collaboration with the United Kingdom and Canada, the United States produced two distinct nuclear weapons, whose existence was tightly controlled from public view. Rigorous measures were taken to prevent information leaks, even to key allied nations. Yet espionage and accidental disclosures eventually led to revelations that not only accelerated nuclear arms development worldwide, but also sparked rigorous censorship policies by the U.S. government. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment, a betrayal of public trust from 1932 until 1972. The U.S. Public Health Service conducted the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, a study that exploited hundreds of impoverished African American men, misled into believing they were being treated for bad blood. The participants were never given proper treatment for syphilis, even after penicillin became the established cure. The study's unethical practices resulted in unnecessary suffering, disability, and death, and led to a landmark overhaul of informed consent protocols and medical research following widespread public outcry. The Iran-Contra affair, secret arms, politics, and scandal. During the 1980s, the U.S. National Security Council became embroiled in what is now known as the Iran-Contra affair. In a brazen violation of congressional bans, secret arms deals were struck to secure the release of American hostages in Lebanon and to fund counter-revolutionary forces in Nicaragua. The scandal almost toppled President Ronald Reagan's administration by exposing how far government agencies would go to support their anti-communist agendas, circumventing legal oversight in the process. Operation Midnight Climax and the dark world of LSD experiments, a lesser-known offshoot of MKUltra, was Operation Midnight Climax. In this project, the CIA arranged for its operatives to secretly administer LSD and other potent drugs to unwitting subjects in controlled safe houses. These experiments were designed to explore the possibilities of mind control and behavioral manipulation, testing whether individuals under the influence could be coerced into performing illicit or even violent acts. The program eventually ended amid widespread ethical violations and public backlash, but remains a chilling example of governmental overreach. The CIA's heart attack gun, a weapon shrouded in secrecy. Perhaps the most alarming revelation from the Church Committee was the existence of the CIA's so-called heart attack gun. This weapon fired miniature darts loaded with a frozen toxin derived from shellfish, a substance potent enough to induce a fatal heart attack almost instantaneously. Engineered to leave no trace by disintegrating within the body, it effectively masked assassinations as natural deaths. Photographic evidence, including images of Senator Church handling the device, substantiated claims of its development, and use highlighting just how far covert programs were willing to push the envelope.